Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Rosham Joe Paints. As always, my name is Joe and today we are going to be painting the Necron Plasmancer from the Indominus box set. This guy has a... Yeah, I didn't read the rules. He looks pretty cool though, so here's a before picture and an after picture. And you know what? I think he's right there. He does look like he's going to boop you on the nose. How about that? Today I'm going to be painting the Necron Plasmancer and he might boop your nose. All right, let's start, I guess. So here we have the Necron Plasmancer, and this guy I thought originally was more of a, I mean, me not knowing the game very much, I was assuming he was kind of a caster, magic user, warp user, whatever the 40k term is, but turns out no, he's actually more like a, kind of like an aura. He's got an aura that does a bunch of damage for people around him for mortal wounds. He's got another tag that does mortal wounds, so it sounds like he's a pretty nasty guy, and I imagine because of that he's not the greatest. Like, he doesn't have a high save, doesn't have a ton of wounds for a character, which is why you put those little murder buckets next to him, which are called, I don't have it in front of me and I'm not going to look it up right now, beep, thing right there. But yeah, so he's got those couple little guys with him in melee range to do a bunch of damage, and then he does the range stuff. So I'm going to be painting him in my normal Sautekh Dynasty scheme, and since no one has an official one as far as I've seen, which is not very far because I don't look, but so I'm going to paint him the same way I paint all of them. You know, orbs and weapons are going to have a somewhat glowy effect. These are going to be a nice gold draping off of him. Shoulders will be green. The canisters are going to be probably silver, black, and green. I don't know if I've decided if I'm going to do anything in like this little, almost looks like an exhaust port. I'll probably just keep that silver and not get too complicated with it. But overall, it's a fun model. I want to show you how it goes together, and the easiest way to do that is to actually go back in time and prior to assembling it, tell yourself, don't assemble it because you're going to want to show it off assembled. So let's go ahead and... So there you go. Oh, I went back into the blurry time of the year. Anyways, so here you go. Also, just for those who actually did time travel, just remember, don't make any changes in the past. And while I think it's more of a separate timeline that you're visiting because it's a timeline that you actually visited yourself in, just be safe, disassemble the model, move on. Don't do anything else. There's really no escaping this timeline. So, that said, for anyone out there who needed that, the model is pretty simple. It's not too many parts. The people who can't time travel, of course, can follow along as I talk about how to reassemble that. Your main body here, this is the point of contact with the base. And I cannot remember if I glued any of this together. So, but that's what I'm going with. That's one of my sub-assemblies right there because I want to be able to paint. So this is going to be gold, but I want to be able to paint each one of these silver because, like, silver with maybe a little bit of green at the end. Because I honestly don't know why I'm thinking that's going to be a good thing, because I think the other guy who I had to glue together has the same thing, and I don't know how I'm going to do his. Anyways, we'll worry about that when I come to that guy. So yeah, so pop this on here. Basically it's the body and then the two sides clamped together. So this just clamps around this. There is a note. There is a foot piece here, and it's not a foot, but it's at his feet essentially, and that tucks into that little cavity. So you can dab a little glue on there if you felt like it, and then this pin obviously goes through here, and then it pops out because I didn't actually dab glue. There you go. And then from there, it's really simple. You got, you know, a single point of contact here. That pushes onto that. You have to put that on before you put the head on. Then you put the head on. The head bone's connected to the backbone, and then here's that little jet piece. There you go. So assembling it is pretty quick, pretty easy. I'm going to do this one like I did the last one, which, if you've been following along, was the last one. And if you haven't been following along, the one I did most recently, I should say, was the Locust Heavy Destroyer. And that guy I did, instead of reassembling it every step to show the new paint process in the shorter videos, the one I do the roundabouts in, instead what I did is I just painted in sub-assemblies and then did assembly as I was coming to like closer to the end of it. So this is going to be more of an actually how I paint, because normally when I paint, I'm not taking it apart 20 or 30 times. So it'll be, hey, I'm going to paint this piece, and I'll be painting, like I'll paint, whoop. Still good? Still good. You messed that up. I'll be painting like this cloak piece on both sides. It's not like I'm going to paint one entire side and then paint the other side. So you'll see as I go along. But they're always, I think I've already put a link down below when it's available. But I'll pop one up at the beginning of the videos now too. Just to let people know, like, hey, if you want a much shorter version that's free from time travel explanation and dropping of models, go ahead and view that one. And then if you're looking for a little more detail, of course, or for some random commentary, then come to this one. So, but you're in this one, so I'm assuming you're in for the long haul, which is probably, I'm not going to lie, another hour. I'm going to go with 57 minutes. I think most of them are about 55. I'll go 57 on this one, so we'll see. If I can make it shorter, I will. But it hasn't started out like a shorter video, so. All right, Chaos Black is my primer. I'm gonna go do that. One note, I do in all these little gaps, they're not gaps, in all these little pegs, since it's a push to fit model, I end up putting a little bit of the sticky tack, blue tack, whatever they call it, basically something in there. You can use just putty, whatever you want. And that way when I spray over it, I don't have to like be careful or go back later and scrape out that hole at all. It'll just be pull off the sticky tack, and then it's nice and clean, so that when I push the joint together, you can. Also, if you're having problems with these push to fit models, feel free to grab yourself a little bit of a, find the drill bit that most closest matches, and just go through these holes to make them a little bit larger. Or if you don't have a drill bit, you can always take your hobby knife and just scrape this down a little bit. It just makes it easier going together. And if you're going to put a lot of glue in the hole, which I don't recommend, but if you want to, make sure you cut off your fingers. You can't see that you're filming. Just cut off the tips of these, just so that when you push it together, if the glue doesn't have anywhere to go, it doesn't keep your seal from actually happening, or keeping your piece from going together fully. Anyways, you probably know how to assemble stuff. I'm going to give you that credit. All right, it's like an 8-minute intro. That's enough of this. All right, let's get painting. So there is the first piece. This is the body and the face are covered in Chaos Black. I primed all of them at once, obviously, but just wanted to start with this one piece with the dry brushing. But I want to show you that was the Chaos Black spray from Citadel, and I use that. I've tried other spray paints. I haven't had luck with them. I know a lot of people may have had luck, but one of these cans lasts a pretty long time, provided you're not overzealous with the amount of spray you're putting on it. Just, light coats across the top, let it dry, and it does a good job of covering it all. And I'm happy with it. You can see that the head is still on here right now, and it is not glued on, because you do need to put that head on after you assemble the body, because there's pieces that come up and join the neck somewhere. But I did spray paint it with the face on, and I'm going to dry brush it with the face on. Now I'm going to be dry brushing using Leadbelcher, and once again I will show you that this is it going to focus? Leadbelcher. There you go. Leadbelcher from Citadel once again, and I like this paint. It's a good silver, and it covers really well on the first go around. If you want to just do, if you're not planning on doing a shade, which I don't know if I'm going to do on this guy, because most of this part actually gets covered up anyway, then just do a light dry brushing and leave the Chaos Black spray in the crevices already, and move on with your life. So I think that's what I'm going to do. And I'm using, actually, this is the first time I used it a little bit already, but overall these are the Army Painter Masterclass brushes. And this by no way is me being sponsored by them. It's just a couple people had asked, hey, could you explain what you do? And I'll try to be a little more functional in that manner. But first time I've used these, I can say that I do like that it's a round, the brush is like a big round tip versus a flat, which are some of my other dry brushes that I've been using. So, you get a lot more control, or not a lot more, but a lot more coverage, I would say, when you're going like back and forth with that brush. So just kind of like it. So hopefully that makes sense. The one thing I dislike about these brushes is the length of the handle is super tiny, and I've got big hands, so I'm not a big fan of it. But regardless, so take a little bit of your Leadbelcher and then just tap your brush, get most of it off. You don't want a ton, because if you have a ton, then it's just going to be a heavy brush, and then, you know, go ahead and start gently going over the tops. And as you can see, it's because I'm going with a light touch here, it's only getting the upper portions, and again, leaving those crevices nice and black. So I will do this for all of the pieces that are needed to be silver, and then I will come back and probably do another dry brush of Runefang Steel or some sort of brighter silver after that. So Leadbelcher now complete. I'm going to now move on to a dry brush of the brightest silver that I own, which is the Runefang Steel. And that is just an old pot that I had kind of lying around. There's also Stormhost Silver. There is Necron Compound, which is actually a dry versus a layer paint, so you already have like the dry brush going for it. So a couple different ones you can use. Mainly what I'm looking to do here is get a nice bright edge on all of the sharpest edges. You can also use this as a layer, thin it down, and actually hit every single edge with as a layer. But I'm going to once again do a little bit of dry brushing, because most of the focus for me on these models is actually in the hyperphase section for the nice glowy weapons and in general. So if these guys look a little dusty or dingy, that's perfectly fine by me. So once again, using the same brush here, I got most of the paint knocked off, hopefully. And now we are going to go and just even lighter than before, because now I'm really just looking to get the very edges. And remember that most of this is going to get covered up because he's got these cloak pieces. So you don't have to, you know, go all out and get every little piece, but you can see it's brightening it up just a little bit. I'm not sure how well that comes across on the camera, but in general, you're just making this a little bit shinier and moving along once you're done with that. So I will, this edge down here, this little point, if I can't get this super bright, I might come back and actually edge highlight that. See if I can almost use this like an edge highlight as my dry brush, so I can, there you go, keep almost look like a nice little sharp edge there. So I think I said edge 16 times, I'm not sure. Anyways, finish dry brushing, and then I will move on to probably some blacks, so we'll see. All right, rather than going with the Abaddon Black, I decided to start off with a little bit of Caliban Green. And of course, let me show you where I put that. That would be on the orbs. I think there's just really just this one and maybe the eye. Threw a little bit inside the canisters. I also did the shoulders as usual, and I started on the blade. I'm going to paint this part of it while you watch, but realistically, we're just putting a nice base coat of Caliban Green onto any parts that you want to be green. And for me, that it's a lot, seeing as how it's Sautekh. I think I did throw a little bit in, I'll show you in a second here once I get this first layer on. Make sure you have thin down paints. Caliban Green is a base coat, but may take a little longer to cover, so make sure it's nice and thin so you don't jam up any details. Also, thank that helicopter that is once again going overhead. He's early tonight. I was expecting him in a couple hours, but you know, maybe they're doing something important. Anyways, so what else? What other piece? So right here in the backs of this, I am going to do a kind of like not a super intense glow. I may just go up a little bit from here, but then we got the hose as well. That is nice and green. I have the head as well because I'm going to be doing the eye green. So, and then yeah, just same thing on the other side, of course. Here, doing the shoulder and canisters. So, we'll finish my base coats of Caliban Green and come back. Caliban Green base coats are done, and what we are going to do now is just on the armor portions and on the in the little jets, since I wanted to, where did my thing go? I threw a little bit of Nuln Oil into there just to darken them down. I don't want that to be too bright, although I am going to be adding some brighter paints later. Yeah, you'll see. I'm gonna try to make it work, and if it doesn't, hey, Leadbelcher is always a thing. So anyways, on the armor panels, for all of these Necrons that I've been doing, I like to paint them with a little bit of Nuln Oil to darken it down, and then I like to dry brush on with some of the Warpstone Glow. But first step is obviously going to be covering them with a little bit. Now, I don't put any of this into like the blades or the orbs or anything else, just the armor panels, just to make them a little bit darker. And obviously with this guy, there's only 2, I think. So it's going to be a pretty quick step. While I wait for the Nuln Oil to dry, I'm actually going to swap over really quick to my Abaddon Black, and going to be painting the staff as well as these little canisters. So the staff here, just the portion of the handle. Be careful when you get close to that silver, because you don't want to end up covering any of that with black. Like this and this. And then also, you can see, I think half of it is already done. It's the these guys that are on the side. Whatever this is, I don't know. It looks a lot like decoration. And then, of course, like I said, I was going to paint the canisters, so hey, I might as well paint some canisters. And that would be these guys right here. I just noticed that I'm like, can't even tell what I'm doing. I have to sit back here so you can see my face, my beautiful, beautiful face. Someone's coming. Hello. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's fine though. Anyways, that was already done. All right. So now that the Nuln Oil is dried on these, I'm going to go back and do a real light dry brush of Warpstone Glow over all of the armor to try and just kind of add a little bit of texture to it, and also catch a little bit of the edges, just make it a little bit brighter. Like, so I wanted to dull it down using the Nuln Oil so that it wasn't 100% just, you know, bright Caliban, or not bright, but yeah, I wanted to dull down a little bit. That's what I wanted. So that's what I did. And now we're going to just brighten it back up, you know, giving a little bit of texture, hitting a little bit of these edges, and then I guess I could do the inside here, even though I don't know if I'll ever see it. I'm using a much smaller dry brush than I had been using to do the most of the body. And it just has, you know, it's a smaller tip. This is what I was talking about. Like if you have like a rectangle head, it's a little bit stiffer, more stiff bristles than the other one was. So in general, it's a different brush. You know, you're going to find which ones you like, but this is the one I'm using for small details. If this was a large armor piece, then I would likely be using one of those other brushes, since I just bought them and they're fancy and I like them. Anyways. So you'll note that I'm also going back and forth over this a lot, and that's just because I'm putting basically next to no pressure whatsoever on this. Not only am I asking it, you know, there's no deadline. Hey, you know, just turn it in whenever you're ready. Obviously, no deadlines, but also no pressure in that I can always go back and add more later if I want to. But I'm liking the results so far. Hopefully that shows up on video. But I can't go back and take it off, so I would have to then coat it once more with the Caliban Green, and also then coat it with Nuln Oil and start all over. So, didn't mean to shout, I'm sorry. So, what are we going to do next? Oh, the other shoulder. And then I think I'm going to do some of the golds before I do edge highlighting. There is going to be, obviously, some Warpstone Glow used here as well, but this is just purely for this dry brush stage. For the next step, I'm going to be covering all of the cloak type pieces with some Retributor Armor, as well as other pieces, but I'm going to start with the cloak, since that is probably the largest portion. Now this is one side. I'm going to do the inside as well. But there's also, like, the other piece has this cloak. And then he's got his, like, headdress / tabard, whatever that is. Just be careful when you come up here to the green. I know we're going to edge highlight those guys later, but, you know, the less cleanup work you got to do, the better. So other places I'm going to put this gold is, I'm going to do, like, you can see I did a little bit of silver in between where it joins, but I am going to do, like, the point in gold. And I probably need a smaller brush. And then this bottom portion, oh man, I definitely needed a smaller brush. Actually, you know what? Real quick, it's not about the brush size. It's about how much of a point you can, why would I look over there? The camera's over here. It's about how much of a point you can get out of that head. The longer the bristles, the more load you get per strokes. So if you can get a nice thin point that actually stays well, then you can use almost whatever size brush you want. And really, the smaller brushes for me, it's just, you know, how much, because I have no spatial awareness, how much of the other parts of the model are you going to hit when you go to paint. So but yeah, you don't actually have to have a super fancy awesome brush, just one that carries a decent amount of paint to the model, which also has a good tip on it. So you can still see good. Am I looking over here? I'm still really far into the corner, but that's okay. That's not the point. The point is, I want you to see what I'm doing here, no matter what. So yeah, I don't know why I haven't switched to a smaller brush, because this is where it comes into. The point is fine, but like I said, I'm gonna bump into other stuff. So I'm gonna go back to painting this. Now you'll see once I put it on screen, see, like, this looks really solid and this kind of looks black or silverish. Retributor Armor is a great paint. It has a really good coverage, but for some reason, you might when you're putting it on, it might go on a little bit almost like watery. That's okay. You don't want it to sit there in puddles, obviously. I like to just keep it moving. Maybe add, or what I'll do is I'll wash my brush off, dry it really well, and then come back. That way, if I soak up any of it, almost like you're soaking up a shade. And I don't know why, but it's not so much here where it's silver. Then the coat is okay. It's if the paint is going directly over that, what is it, the Chaos Black spray, for some reason it just seems to, like, want to bead up. So it takes a couple of coats, but just be patient with it, because if you try and overdo it, then you're gonna gum up all of it. And that goes for, I guess I could have said that like right when I started the episode, is just, you know, hi everybody, welcome to Roshan Joe Paints. Don't put too much paint on your brush. And that would be like an entire episode, so be like the shortest episode I ever made. So, moving right along, like I said, just gonna paint these guys. So what I did up here, those two little, could you see any of that? Hey, look, I was painting. So I was doing this line here. I don't know, actually, I wasn't looking at the camera, so I don't actually know when that went out of frame. But up here, you can see I did a couple pieces. I'm going to come back, again, do around that top piece. I'll show you when I'm done, instead of trying to decide right away. So let's go do the rest of this. And then I will shade with Agrax Earthshade. Normally, if I'm doing a bright gold, I will do... what is it? The Reichlin Flesh Shade, because that's more of a reddish, goldish, like a brighter. It'll leave the gold looking brighter. But since these are Necrons and they're dirty and dingy, I like to use the Agrax Earthshade to make it look a little bit dirty. Still brighten it up in the same way, but you'll see that. I'm not going to film the shade part, although maybe I'll put a little bit of an episode or a clip in at some point. I may have already cut over myself because I was just rambling and shown some of that. So let me finish the rest of the gold here, and we'll come back with it shaded, and I think then we'll start doing some layers. So I gave the Agrax Earthshade some time to dry, and as you can see, it's filled in the crevices quite nicely, and it did dull it down a little bit, but like I said, I'm not too worried about that, since I do expect this to be a little bit dirtier and dingier than normal. I did want to show, I don't know if I did this before, but on a lot of my Necrons right now, whenever they have these larger spines, I've been painting them gold. I kind of like how that looks. So I did gold, Agrax Earthshade, and I already have dry brushed this as well as the cloak here with Liberator Gold, just to clean it up and what do you call that? Hit the edges. It's not going to show amazingly, but if you spend too much time with the Liberator Gold going and dry brushing over it, you're just going to end up covering the camera and making everything go blurry. You're going to end up making it look just too shiny. Come on, come back to focus. There we go. All right, so now that I've warned you about dry brushing, we're going to dry brush some more, and this is going to be the last section of the gold here. I am going to come back with probably a little bit of Runefang Steel later on to highlight over just maybe the very bottom corners. But what I have is I have a very minuscule amount of the Liberator Gold on the dry brush, and I'm not going to put a whole lot of pressure on here. I'm just going to drag kind of down and in from the edges so that I can get the line, like the outside lines, almost as if I'm doing an edge highlight. But I don't, for me, my own sake, I'm not looking to really highlight these. These already look good as they are, but if I can get a little bit of contrast or a little bit of shine just on the edges, on the outsides, I'm okay with that too. So I'm doing this, but again, I'm not really focusing. If you had a lot of time and you like the look, you could focus on maybe hitting something like, taking a Liberator Gold and doing like every single little itty circle around here and doing I don't have the patience for that, and I know that if I messed up, I would be more upset than, basically if I messed up, I'd be more upset at messing up than I would be at if I didn't mess up and had the result that I was expecting. So so for me, dry brushing works. Just going to do a little bit more, make sure I knock off more paint so I don't really mess up. And then, and then roll it, because that's how I run. That's how I roll. That's how my pieces roll. Of course, don't forget the tops here, back and forth. Again, kind of light. You can also just tap in. These two pegs are blocked. These two pegs are actually part of like what support his neck. So if I do end up coloring them gold at all, I'll just come back with some silver later and clean that up. So, all right, let me finish this up and move on to something else. With most of the dry brushing now complete, I think it's all complete, but you never know. I'm going to move on to highlighting the black, and the black normally I'll use like an Eshin gray. However, that doesn't show up super well for me, and I'm impatient. So I'm instead going to just start with Dawnstone, and I do a simple edge highlight around all of the black pieces. There's only a few, so this should be a fairly quick step for me. There's the icon here that is on the chest piece, or chest decoration, or whatever this is. But there's also the staff, and on the staff there's quite a few pieces, so it could take a little while. You've got all of this, the actual like handle of the staff, and you come in here and you can do a thin line right around the top and the bottoms of each section, or make a really thick line like this and get it all over the place because you're painting with black. So all you have to do is let it dry, assist in the drying process. There we go. And then just come back with black, and then with a steady hand, paint right back in the center there, and then paint above like that. So you choose how you want to do it. I think either way should work just fine. Because you're just painting with a simple Abaddon Black base coat, you can pretty much cover whatever you want, so you don't need to be super careful. But that's just for the handle. When you get closer to the this icon ography decoration stuff up here. Just be a little more careful. You could see I did, I painted this center gold. The other one's going to be green, but, you know, come around the edges here really, really carefully, slowly. I don't want to bump it. And same thing for this, you know, do your edges up here and then find a good angle to come and get like, there you go, right there, just like that. And again, if anything on the black gets messed up, that's fine, because you can always clean that up later. When you're trying to clean up the silver that has the Agrax or the Nuln Oil, or you're hitting the gold, you know, just be careful when you're around other colors that aren't just pure black. So I'm going to finish up with that highlighting stage. Oh, also, while we're at it, might as well hit the canisters, since they are also black. And this, best way I can describe this is I'm trying to just lay it flat. You want watered down paint, but you don't want too much, because you're just going to try to hit these lines that surround the green. And there's a circle here. So if you're doing any sort of like object source lighting, then all of that will probably be glowing green anyway, so you can skip this part. But I'm going to try to attempt to hit all of those, and we'll see how much of it gets covered up later on when I start to put a little bit of extra color in there. We'll see. Anyways, so there you go. That's Dawnstone over the black. We will finish this up and come back and probably start layering with some more greens. Real quick, I just wanted to show you that I did not listen to my own advice, and I went ahead and with some Runefang Steel hit every single one of these panels, just on the bottom, and in some cases like the very edges like that, just to shine them up a little bit more. And I also did that on the entire cloak piece, and put a dot of Runefang Steel here as well on all these little things, which, I don't know, it kind of catches the light a little bit, so might as well. So there you go. That's just a little bit of cleanup with Runefang Steel. Obviously, we are now done with the Dawnstone. And I began highlighting, or not highlighting, but layering with the Warpstone Glow. And where that is going to be is pretty much everywhere that we had Caliban Green before. And that's going to be the hoses. I already did this eye right here. So this side is basically done. Let's see, let's go with this piece. Obviously, the orb, we're gonna put a good amount into this orb, and we're gonna push it to basically like 75% of it, maybe leaving a little bit of the dark where it meets up with the Retributor Armor. However, if you do get a little bit too close, you can always either go back in with some Caliban Green, or throw some Bale Tan Green, or even some Nuln Oil, just to darken that crease up again to make sure you get a nice break between the two. We're also, we already did our highlights in dry brushing earlier on the armor plates, but we are going to go ahead and drop a thin line, as thin and carefully as we can, through this canister, and then the dot as well. Nice part is, if you get a little bit on the outside, you can always go back quickly enough and wipe it off. So there you go. We don't want, I'm looking for basically the outside edges, like the very top and the very bottom. I'm not going to do, but I will maybe hit most of it. And then we're going to come back later and brighten that up a little bit more. Then we get over to what will be most of the work here, and that is going to be layering on some paint for the blade. Now, I haven't decided exactly where I'm going to do this yet, and since it does take quite a while, I'm going to skip showing it. But I will come back and, because this is not the back and forth part, but basically what we're going to do is maybe we'll make the centerpiece dark. I like to make the very edges light, so you know what, I'll go ahead and do this. We're going to take half of the blade, and then, as in, like, this is one half over here, this is the other half, and we're going to do a nice thin coat coming from the outside in, down, and I'm running out of paint because I waited too long. But basically, I'm keeping it really watered down right here because I'm not looking to, this is going to be multiple thin coats. I'm just using water. You can use any sort of medium you'd like, but basically, yeah, we're going to come down here. You can see how wet that paint is right now. And I'm going to cover about half of the blade, maybe, like so, right about to there. and push most of the excess to the outer part where you know it's going to be brighter. Now, since we did this side here, I'm also then going to take about half of this side and maybe go this way with it, right? We'll make this whole side nice and bright. And then we will make this part up here about half again and come back this way. And we're going to do this on both sides and keep it about, try to keep it as thin as you can per coat, because the smoother the transition, the better it's going to look later on. I'm going to come back. Actually, you can see that's pooling pretty bad right there. So I'm going to see if I can pick some of that back up. If you get any into this part right here, don't worry about it. Just throw some Nuln Oil in there later to darken back up, so you can actually just paint right across the whole thing if you want. But I wouldn't recommend intentionally doing it like I just did, because the cleaner it is, the better it'll look when you're done. Same thing we're going to do over on the gem. I'm going to make the bottom here and the top, I think, the brightest portions. I don't know. You know what? That I'm gonna show you that later. I'm gonna go look at a picture, see what I like the most, and come back. But as you can see, we're already drying up here, and we're gonna come back and do, a second one, and again about halfway, keeping it nice and thin, so that we get a nice smooth gradient. Again, since the outer portions where you know it's gonna be brighter, you can let those stay with like a heavier amount of paint. But where you know the transition is going to be, I would definitely try to keep it as thin a coat and as minimal coverage as possible, just so you're not having to go back and do a lot of work. You can, if you want, blend it back in. Like if you do mess up, like I will off camera constantly, go back in with a very thin layer of Caliban Green and just do the opposite. Now you got your Warpstone Glow, obviously, but then you got Caliban Green in here, so you can come in with the Caliban Green and slowly work your way back towards where that transition was, and the one you want to, make it a little softer fade, something like that. So you can go back and forth, and we'll do the same thing with the brighter colors as we get there. You'll see there's a lot of back and forth, but I'll probably leave the longest explanation here, and the rest of them I'll try to just go by much quicker. So let me do both sides of the blade. I'll do the gem and then this side over here as well. And you'll see, hopefully, what are nice clean transitions for that that effect. No promises, but we'll get there and then move on to the next one. So with the Warpstone Glow now done, for the time being, we're going to come in and do a small layer of Moot Green on the hoses. Not a whole lot of it, but just kind of on the edges where it curves, or wherever I feel like putting it, where I think it looks good. And we're going to go be mixing this back and forth with a little bit of the Warpstone Glow, just so that it blends in nicely, so you don't get a hard line between the two. Also, I'm going to make sure it's a lot thinner than that. So maybe in the inside right here, but not all the way down where it straightens out, just because that's kind of how I feel right now. So that will be that part. And then, we're going to add a little bit of this into the orb pieces, such as the eye. Now we used a good amount of the prior green, so we're going to use a little bit less this time. And just like that. I'm very focused. Did I get that? Oh, I did. Look. He's looking right at you. He's so angry. So angry. Why does he look so angry? Anyways, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he has like that, like, accusatory look. I don't know what it is. I honestly don't. It's a little plastic model. Why does he look that way? Because that's how they design it. All right, so as you can see, we have our nice little transitions, or so far, the Caliban into the Warpstone Glow. Before I jump into that, so again, you got an orb down here, so go ahead and do that. But remember, you got these, where it goes? There, you got these canisters here. So we're going to use even less in the Moot Green, from just about there to there, and with like that, just to make it look a little bit glowy, if you will. The other thing we're going to do with this is we're going to go back to edge highlighting for a brief moment, not too long, and we are going to edge highlight the armor on, you guessed it, the edges. Go figure. It's right there in the name. So take a nice thin coat of Moot Green. Really, if you gotta, just paint your finger a little bit just to make sure you don't have too much on there because you don't want it to run everywhere. I'm going to get this damage here, go up around the edge. And I'm also going to come into the bottom portion, right like that. So you get the idea. We're going to go around the whole, that whole shoulder plate. If there was any other armor, we'd obviously do the rest of that armor, but I really just think it's the two shoulders, and that is it. So that said, now let's focus on thinning down our Moot Green a little bit more. And so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to start up on the edge here. I'm going to try and do, again, I'm going to maybe paint my finger a little bit because I don't want a whole lot going on in the first coat. But again, just pushing away from where the transition of the darker colors happens, and then you don't have to get it all on the first go because I don't even know if that's possible. The other thing that I was noticing as I was painting this side, because I'm already done with that side, was that if you do a little bit of stippling here, it goes a long way. So instead of trying to make a perfect brush stroke, just you want the paint down here, you start tapping down here, and then you slowly work up to where that transition is, and then you stop. Where you want that transition to be. This is going to be all green with a little bit of that yellow later on, so I could just cover that whole piece. But right here, I'm just going to go little taps, little taps, little taps. And the best part about the stippling is it will dry out pretty quickly because you're not putting on a whole lot. If you do end up seeing like a puddle forming, just stop, let it dry, come back. But the nice part is now I can go get a also thinned down tiny little bit of, you guessed it, Warpstone Glow. I don't know if you guessed it. I guessed it. And come back in the opposite direction if I want to clean this side up. So just a little bit of stipple back and forth, back and forth. And that's, it might take a long time. It will take a long time if you're doing this method. But I think that the results are actually looking pretty good so far. There's lots of videos out there. I've linked one out of I think it was the Eliminor. Nope. No, it was the Destroyers one. Nope. One of my previous videos, I linked another video to a guy who does a really good job. Now that I've said all that, I'll just link it down below because it's easier than trying to remember everything about it. But he does a really good job of painting the green, and I think he also does a pink and an orange. So if you're looking for a variation on colors, I'll point you his direction. I think it's JuanHidalgo. He does a really good job of making that what do you call it, the heavy metal look. So as you can see, just back and forth stippling, really thin coats, and just keep doing that until you're happy with what it looks like, which for me is about right there. So I got a decent transition on the camera, of course. I'm like, wait a minute, there's a hard line right here, but you can go back and stipple. There you go. You can always clean it up later. There is no exact science to this, so it is all personal preference. How much area you even want to have a transition, how much is going to be bright, how much is going to be dark, what colors you're going to use, all that fun stuff. That is what makes this hobby so fun, is you could do whatever you want. You can just, paint it like I paint it, or paint it good. Anyways, I'm going to finish up with the Moot Green, and then, wow, after that, it's pretty much Dorn Yellow and basing. So we are on the home stretch. In our final step before closing out here, we're going to use some Dorn Yellow. Now the Dorn Yellow is going to be twofold. Again, it's going to be a little bit of blending up here on the up there on the weapon, but I'm also going to take as thin of a portion as I can and try to just hit the very center-ish of of those canisters to give them a little bit of glow. Now, if you layer it on too heavy, again, come back with either just water, a little bit to thin that yellow down, or you can come in with some Moot Green and, you know, try to blend it together a little bit. You just want it to look like it's a little bright in there. So you're also going to use a decent amount of Dorn Yellow going back and forth on the orbs. So I like to start in the center. It's very watered down. I'm just kind of pushing it around. I'm going to go and try to make a decent circle here. And then I'm going to come back and just like that. And now, while it's still wet, I'm going to get a little bit of Moot Green. And while I'll be focusing on the outsides, I'm looking to just dab this in and kind of blend that yellow and the green together like this. Hopefully that's coming across okay. I can't quite tell, but again, we're just trying to blend the edges together to make that green a little more yellow, make that yellow a little more green, right where the two meet. So now we're going to do this over and over, and then we'll probably take a couple rounds of that to make it a nice little glow. Come in here with some yellow again, right more again to the center. So there we go, back and forth, back and forth. I'll let that dry, see if that looks good. So something like that. Okay, now for the weapon, again, same idea. We're going to be going, this is a little bit of yellow will go a long ways. So I'm going to start with the gem here, and hopefully I will be able to show you before the heater fully cranks up. I'm just going to go on the bottom, very, very bottom here. And I don't know if you can see that. Oh, you can. And then again, Moot Green to try and thin it out a bit. Spread it up and down. And what we're going for here is a transition up. Let me put this further away. Almost like it looks like the bottom, excuse me, the bottom is glowing, making the rest of it glow. Now, before the heater fully kicks in, which I'm not going to beat, I just keep liking to say that, get yourself a thin layer of the Dorn Yellow, and what you're going to do is you're going to hit up all of, nope, that's too much. See, I can tell it's too much. It's too wet. All these lines on the jewel itself, like this. Try to get a nice straight line up and down. And you're going to do that over here too. You're going to do that on all of the weapon. Even the dark Caliban Green sides, I'm going to end up doing those edges all the way up here into the Moot Green. And this little section in the center is where the blend happens, so we do that. So kind of the same idea with the Moot Green. Again, you're just trying to blend these colors to get a nice gradient together. And when you're done, hang on, let me try to fix, again, add a little bit of green in here, maybe spread this yellow out so it's not such a stark or a sharp line there that we made, something like that. When you're done, hopefully it'll look something like that. And for me, that's the look I'm going for. I like it, and that's, you can always come back in with the, if your lines get too thick, you can always come back in and try to clean them up a bit with the whatever green it's currently up against, Caliban Green, a Warpstone, or whatever it ends up being. So I'm going to go through, finish all these yellow pieces, and finish off the basing, and then show you what it all looks like. And once again, we come to the part of the episode where I get to say, and there you have it. So, Indominus, Necron Plasmancer, complete, ready to join his brothers on the battlefield and point at everybody with his metal, skinny finger of accusations. If you liked what you saw and you actually made it this far into the episode, thank you very much. Hopefully you comment, subscribe, like it, insert other YouTube things that they do. Ooh, you could share it. How you could share it. Follow me on social medias. I've got an Instagram. That's probably where I'm most active. I've got a Reddit as well, but I haven't been posting there in a little while because, man, I've just been kind of lazy. So I am looking to be a little more consistent now. Hopefully getting out 1, if not 2 videos a month. So, you know, ring the bell, look for those in the future. And other than that, we'll see you next time. Oh, God. It's a good thing that was after the shot. Ha!